Welcome back to fantasy football, kind of. Um, so, welcome back to Intentional Grounding, week 2. If you're here, still apologize. It's still going to be a rough week for you, but got a whole nother slate of games, and I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Tom. I came up short last week. Missler, what are you up to? Besides, you look like you just got done running.
Yeah, yeah.
You got
Hey,
that windblown beard look.
windblown beard look. I was on the elliptical, dude. I don't go outside. Fuck that. I've been inside this hotel room for all day, sadly. But yeah, I guess I fared better than you last week in fantasy because I know how to draft and things like that. But
Mm. Mm.
but no, it was a good week for me. It was also a nice little grudge match. I'm glad I came out ahead in that last week.
Did I play you last week?
No, no.
Yeah, we don't have a grudge match because it's not a grudge match if I keep losing. So yeah, we covered that last week too. So
Exactly. Somebody thought their team name was funny, so I had to change my team name in retaliation, and it worked for me. Karma fell on the side of the just.
and then we got John over there looking sultry with that new light.
Yeah, sun kissed a little bit here,
You actually
but
look like 10 shades tanner than me and Mishler combined.
when you're a pale white guy, you got to do that.
I'll tell you what. Next week I'm
Yeah,
getting that soft light.
We'll
it was,
settle
it was
for
a
a
rough
working
fantasy
camera
week.
time.
Yeah, yeah. We'll
It
see.
was a
We'll see how long this kicks on.
rough fantasy week last week. I'll say that for teams. Shitty week, but hey, that's what happens. Sometimes you have Jalen Hurts starting on both teams, and he lays an egg.
Sometimes you have Jalen Hurts starting in real life, and he also lays an egg, which we'll get into. So, who wants to kick it off this week?
All right, I guess I'll kick it off since we're starting with the Bucks Falcons tomorrow. Took a look at the game. Bucks are actually, or the Falcons are actually a 1.5 favorite, but if I were to lay money on this, I'm definitely going with the Bucks this week. And that's just the game straight up. Fantasy wise, I wouldn't touch a single person on the Falcons. I still find it hilarious that people keep trying to make Kyle Pitts happen. He's done nothing. He laid literally a goose egg, and he wasn't the only tight end to do it. But I won't get into that. The one advice I would give, and I know I'm holding on to him, and it's just kind of luck of the draw. Every year you're drafting, come to the end of the draft, look at those rookies. Try to find somebody that may pan out, maybe somebody to stash later. I've got Bucky Irving stashed. He's probably going to take over as the number one running back on this team by the end of the year. And if you're in a keeper league like we are, he's just going to roll over and stay on my team for a low round pick. It's pretty solid. I don't see, after seeing the Falcons play the Eagles, I don't see any way that they're going to slow down those Bucks receivers or Baker Mayfield. He's just keeps playing solid games. I was almost upset that I didn't start him last week, but luckily Jordan Love put up so many garbage time points, it was worth starting him. But aside from those Bucks players, I wouldn't touch anybody else on the Falcons. But I think the Bucks have this. I think the Falcons' luck's going to run out this week.
Hmm. So I'm going to give you a quick recap on that. Like the Bucks, I think it's all smoke and mirrors. I think Bucky Irving's also smoke and mirrors. That's mainly just a shot at you. But like as far as the teams, like Atlanta, I think is frisky. I think they're going to be frisky all year. They seem like I don't know if they're fun and frisky, but they're just kind of frisky.
But fantasy wise, there's nobody to touch. I mean, Drake London was overdrafted in way too many leagues.
Yeah.
They may finally get it together, but he's not a wide receiver one right now. He's fantasy wise, he's a wide receiver two. Um, Darnell Mooney, if he could ever catch one of those balls, or they could link up when he beats a defense, maybe. But he's too hit or miss to trust. That's why I recommend the Bucks players fantasy wise more than anything. But I do think they're going to pull out the game as well. And then the
I,
next game, I would say, oh, sorry, go ahead, John.
I think Bijan has a chance of going off this week. The Bucks have the 22nd ranked defense against the run. So I think, I mean, you saw what Saquon did last week. If the Eagles actually gave him the ball,
Yeah.
when they did, he ran all over them. So I think the Falcons. I know their offensive line's still a little banged up, but I think they give Bijan the ball. They go through the run. They can open up some of that play action for Cousins, which he does really well with. I think the Falcons have a shot at home in this one, but I do like the Bucks. I like Baker. He's played phenomenal this year, and he's not turning the ball over, which is exactly what he needs to do. So, like you said, though, that's pretty much the only Falcons player I would put on the field.
Cool.
And then
So
next
I
game,
guess next game I'll kick off. So the next, I'm looking forward to Baltimore versus Cincinnati. So this is I'm all in on Baltimore. I feel like Baltimore is, they just got to rev the engine up. Like they start a little slow every year, get them going, running downhill. Derrick Henry's looking young again. Lamar Jackson always looks young, and if they can ever get any of the receivers to have any kind of steady production, I actually pulled it up. I think there was like 16 total completions last week for Lamar Jackson, and a lot of those came to Hill out of the backfield. So like it feels like the Baltimore passing attack is way down. And speaking of being way down, the Cincinnati passing attack minus Jamar Chase feels barren this year. It feels like Joey Burrow is not really going to have a spectacular. It feels like it's one of those years. Like he got to the Super Bowl in his second year, and it's been a slow decline backwards. And I was trying to think of a player comp for Joe Burrow of somebody starting out hot and then slowly sliding backwards. He didn't win, but cooking with your favorite cornball from up in Pittsburgh this year, Russell Wilson. It feels like a little bit of a Russell Wilson type career, sliding backwards a little bit. So what's you guys' thoughts on that game? I got Baltimore to win, though. I think Baltimore steamrolls them.
I agree. I think Baltimore is going to crush them. I mean, they're just playing. Their run game is out of control. And I mean, I don't agree with you that the passing game's ever going to take off in Baltimore. I just don't think that's the style of football they play. And everything
Well,
goes through
selfishly, I
Lamar.
overdrafted a lot of their players, so I just hope every week. Like I'm hoping for a Mets loss right now.
But Burrow's not playing bad. Their passing offense is 12th in the league. I mean, it's not like he's playing bad. He started a little slow that first game against the Wings. They're getting healthy. They got T. Higgins back last week. He'll be full go now. So I think the Bengals will hang in there this season. I know they're off to a rough start, but it ain't going to happen this week. I do hate games in this division. I hate picking a winner in this division because they all seem to just beat the hell out of each other. But I think Baltimore's just hitting their stride right now. It's going to be too much.
Cool.
I got Baltimore winning the game, but they're a one-dimension team. I don't think they're ever going to get out of that one dimension, but I think they got enough to win that way if they just realize that's all they can do. Lamar's never going to be a great passer, but the other stuff he can do, the check downs and the fear of the run now that they have Derrick Henry, I think it's enough for them to actually win and produce, but they're never going to be a great passing attack. That's just a misnomer. People have been trying that for years with him. It's never going to change. But if they can have a consistent run game and he has a running back that lasts an entire season, they're a dangerous team. They can still win everything that way. It's just don't expect them to be anything different. Don't expect a high flying offense. Just run the ball, control the clock. They can win that way, and I definitely think they're going to win that way this week. That and I love having Derrick Henry.
And what game you got, John? What game are you looking forward to?
I'm not looking forward to any of the games. I think the whole slate's pretty boring this week. But I'm going to go to the game in London. Our first London game of the season: Jets Vikings at Tottenham Spur Stadium. The Jets are hanging in there. They're kind of playing Jets football right now.
It feels very
So
Jets season.
boring.
It feels like a very Jets season right now.
Feels very Jets. And then you got the Vikings, who are undefeated, playing out of their minds, playing better than anybody expected them to. But Darnold and Rodgers both have knee injuries. They're both fighting through it. Looks like they're both going to play. So that may come into a factor in this game. Brees Hall, I don't know what's going on there. He's losing some carries to Allen, and I don't know. I mean, he's got the most receptions for a running back in the league. That's not going to go away. He looks more like a receiver in this offense now, though, than a running back. But obviously, he's on your fantasy team. You're firing him up. But Braylon Allen could be come a couple weeks, could be a low end flex play for somebody. I don't think he's going away. On the Buck side at running back, Aaron Jones, very similar player to Hall right now. I mean, he's right there. He's got 16 receptions. Hall's got 18. They're both guys you're going to use in a PPR format no matter what. Like they catch the ball too much. They're too useful in their offense. The guy that's really struggling right now is Garrett Wilson, though. He is off to a terrible start. Surprisingly, him and Justin Jefferson, who's going head to head with in this game, both have 20 catches. The difference is Jefferson's got 200 more yards and 4 touchdowns to Wilson's 1.
To be fair, they had that 190-yard play, didn't he? Like Jefferson had that 190-yard bomb. So
Jefferson's a big play receiver. I mean, it's just the way it is. Wilson's getting all these dink and dunk catches. Everything's 9 yards. It's not happening for him. I think the guy you got to look out in this game though is Addison, coming off a big one against Green Bay last week. He's back healthy now, and I think defense will be keen on Jefferson. You'll have Sauce covering him most of the game. I think Addison's the one that's going to benefit from that. But I think I got the Vikings in this one. I don't think the Jets' fortunes are changing in this one.
Yeah, and then another nice play about this game is if you can get them, if somebody hasn't snagged them up by now, throw a flyer out on Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold is falling into that Baker Mayfield mold. They're playing with house. Those guys are playing with house money. They've been on enough they were, first round picks, top 10 picks were supposed to be franchise quarterbacks, and then they bounce around. And at this point, they found teams that they can run the offense. It's comfortable to them. They basically are playing with no fear. So Darnold's out there, pick him up. I mean, even if it's just a backup. And then I think John's spot on with Addison. I think that's the big difference between Jefferson, especially going forward the rest of the season, between Jefferson and Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson's going to get all the coverage, everything shaded towards him because there's no other real legitimate threat. Like they have Lazard. He's okay. He's not enough to scare them. Devontae Adams may totally change that. You're right. But we'll see if it happens. The Jets already have enough issues making trades. They're still they still are getting fleeced by Hassan Reddick.
Yeah, when they show up is when the trade gets completed, right?
Well, just to put to rest for all the Eagles fans, they cannot get Hassan Reddick back, so you can put that dream away.
Did that come out? Is that official?
Yeah. It's a rule. They can't. He has to be gone for 2 years before he could come back.
Really?
Yes, that was announced, I believe, yesterday or Monday.
Yeah.
Oh, that dream's dead. That dream's dead.
Sorry to just stomp right over your dreams.
I don't think it's gonna.
I guess
I'm
gonna get off hold now from the radio station. So I had a call on the sports radio. The midnight show is a great place to bitch. So, what's the next game you got up, Mish?
Let's see. We could go with a real solid winner right here. Dolphins Pats. They got the Pats a 1 point favorite at home. In this game, I don't know. And I would think it would be Ramondre Stevenson, but ESPN just released a report that he may be losing out his job to Antonio Gibson, which is a shock.
Four fumbles already this year.
Yeah. He wouldn't even allow them to have 4 fumbles if Belichick was the coach. One wouldn't have been enough to put him on the bench. But I don't show much faith, or I don't have much faith in Antonio Gibson. I mean, he couldn't keep a job from a guy that had a bullet hole in his leg. So I don't know that he's going to keep the job either. And then the Dolphins, good old Snoop Huntley, he's not the answer. I mean, why haven't they brought back Ryan Tannehill to save anybody that ended up with a Dolphins wide receiver? I just don't see anything happening. Without a quarterback, that whole offense just takes a huge hit to the point you could play guys, but I wouldn't expect much out of them from Waddle. Maybe Tyreek Hill because they're going to force him the ball. But, I mean, that loss just killed that entire offense because they don't have anybody competent to step in and do the job, unfortunately. So as far as I'm concerned, the whole game's garbage. It's a pick 'em game. I really would. If you're brave enough to put money on one of these two teams, have at it. But I wouldn't touch this with Tom's money.
I wouldn't touch it with my money either. It's an awful. This slate is actually like one of the worst in the last couple of years. I hate bye weeks when bye week, especially the first bye week. It feels like it just feels like there's nothing on this week, and I'm like there's not really a game that I care about. Um, you said something about Ramondre. Like Ramondre is by far the most talented back on that team, but I don't know when the Drake May transition is going to happen, but it can't really happen soon enough. Like, what else do you have to play for there? You got Brissett, and like every week, it just feels like they're going through the motions until May comes in. Like receivers, running backs, the whole line. Like, I get it. Put him in, see what happens. He can't really be worse than Brissett. Brissett's a solid backup, but I like every time you watch him, it's like offense in reverse. You just hope for like the defensive play. Like he goes backwards more than he goes forwards, but he's sturdy. So like you leave him in there. But yeah, this is one that I will spend approximately even when red zone comes on, I'm going to flip it off for this game.
Honestly, we spent too much time talking about this.
Yeah, this game. So let's get on to the real barn burner that is the Broncos and Raiders. It's another shitwitch we got here. We got the Fighting Bo Nixes versus the Devontae Adams-less Raiders. It's a really star-studded affair. Like as far as fantasy goes, this is one that I would like. As far as I take none of the Broncos. Bowers, I want to get you guys ideas on Bowers. Like, is Bowers a top tier tight end, or is he just a top tier tight end talent on a garbage team that doesn't really know how to utilize anybody consistently? We got Myers getting 10 catches last week with, Brock getting what, 2, 3.
Hey,
So
Myers helped my team last week.
I don't care about your team.
Myers,
I'm trying to
Myers
help other people. Nobody
Myers
cares
is
about
a
your fantasy football team.
he's a fallback player. When you got injuries come up, the guy's somewhat consistent. He's not the worst player for a 1 week stream.
No.
But as far as Bowers goes, I think Bowers is on his way to being legit because they don't have great other receiver options outside of Devontae Adams. I mean, they have Devontae, but if Devontae's not panning out, it's Jacoby Myers and Bowers.
There's too much smoke there. I think Devontae is definitely gone. I don't know if it's going to be the Jets, the Saints, or what else? The Chiefs. Chiefs, the other option. Like the Chiefs make sense.
They're not going to trade to the Chiefs in their same division. They're just not going to do it.
They make the most sense.
He'll go to the Jets because starting next year, he's worth like $35 million a season. His salary or his cap hit just jumps outrageously. So you've got to be able to fit him in. Chiefs won't do it just because they run their team too smart. They're an Andy Reid run team. They're not going to make that move. It's not, and plus they don't need it. I mean, do they need a receiver? Yes, but do they need him? No. They'll make it work just like they've made it work.
I'd love to see Tyree go back to KC.
Tyreek
with Mahomes. Yeah, I would love to see that.
Yeah, free him. He feels like he's in jail. You ever see that meme where he's like, "I'm gonna get you out of there"? That's what Pat Mahomes is doing to him right now. He's like, "You don't belong in there." Like, that would open that offense, the KC offense, which I'm sure we'll talk about soon. But this one, like as far as the Raiders go, this is I'm staying away fantasy wise. Everybody except Bowers. If you got to stream Myers, you can stream Myers. Everybody else, this is a do not touch game. In most cases, I don't think Adams plays. I think he's going to get traded. I think he's going to be probably 2 to 3 weeks out. So
Adams is already ruled out.
Is he?
It's a real hamstring injury. Apparently, they're telling teams that if they want to trade for him, he's actually hurt. So we'll see what happens.
Nice of them. That's very nice of the Raiders. They're always an upstanding organization. Never lie about anything.
I love how they justified his injury. They were like, "Well, AJ Brown's been out since week 1, so it's real. You could get your hamstring hurt in practice for real."
I do have a sleeper for you on the Raiders, though. Trey Tucker. If you need somebody, you're struggling, need somebody just to get volume. 5 catches for 41 yards last week. He's a little sneaky guy. Maybe he can help you down the road. He's going to only get better. So, especially if Devontae gets traded, the ball's got to go somewhere.
Yeah. What you got next game, John?
All right. I'm going to go Colts Jags. Real exciting game in
This slate keeps
Jacksonville.
getting better. I'll tell you
Yeah.
what, guys. I'm posting up now on the Red Zone channel. I'm going to watch the countdown from now on for this week.
They are all like interdivision slugfest, boring games.
Who's starting quarterback for the Colts this week?
That's a great question.
Because if it's Joe
Richardson's
Flacco,
got no oblique. I think it's Flacco.
if
Flacco.
it
The offense.
if it's
moved better.
Flacco, Pittman might actually be worth a play for this week because Flacco came in and was like, "Hey, we got a number one receiver over there. I don't know what Richardson's been looking at, but he's right there. He had 10 catches over 100 yards last week."
They actually have 2.
They have 2 Downs as well.
Yeah,
8 for 82 and a TD last week. They got a solid receiving core on that team. They got a good offense. Now they
just need a quarterback that can find the receivers.
And Taylor's out with a high ankle sprain. So I think you're looking at Trey Sermon at running back, and the Eagles fans know what Trey Sermon is. He's awful. So 5 carries last week. Real solid debut for him. But I mean, on the Jag side, what's going on with this team? And this is a playoff team last year. Like, what happened in the offseason? Like, okay, they lost Ridley. He hasn't done shit in Tennessee, so I don't think he's the problem. What's going on with Trevor Lawrence? I mean, he's got 729 yards, 4 TDs, and a pick. It's not awful numbers, but like he's missing guys high, low, off target. He's not connecting when he needs to. I mean, if you look back at the 2021 draft, this is a great question for you guys. Can you name the top 4 players in that draft? This might be the worst NFL draft of all time at the top.
Top 4? So what was it? Lawrence, Zach Wilson, and Trey Lance?
Yep. And
Who was 4?
Kyle Pitts.
Pitts. Yeah.
That might be the worst draft of all time at the beginning.
But Trevor Lawrence was supposed to be like Jesus, but
yeah.
You know what I think his problem is? It's time to cut the hair. Like the sunshine hair, it's time to go. Like the time, if he cut his hair and came back with like a shaved head and like a goatee, or like just came back looking completely different, I think he'd play very different. You got to try something different.
I think it's time to cut Lawrence. I think they should have stuck a fork in him after.
You can't. I mean, you can't.
That playoff game last year, they were winning the game, and then he threw 4 picks against the Chargers. 4 picks. You can't
get rid of him now. You can't get rid of him now, though. Now he's
I definitely would not have signed him to that contract. That was bizarre to me. Like, there's no way his name should be at any given point in time the most, the highest paid quarterback in the league. I realize it was only for like a week, but
you know who's going to revitalize his career next year down there? Nick Sirianni. That's where all Eagles go to die. It's Jacksonville.
No, Nick Foles got out. He died in what, Chicago or
no? He got but where did he go? You escaped from Philly. They're like, oh, Jacksonville seems like a soft landing spot. Nobody cares down there.
Yeah, they're gonna move that whole franchise to London permanently.
They do play well. They do play well in London. So
it's a home team.
Yeah,
it's because no one in Jacksonville gives a damn.
Another thing with them, though, real quick, Bigsby had a big game last week. 7 carries, 90 yards. This is the second big game of the year. Do you see him taking anything away from ETN?
I don't know if it's the entire team or the entire offense, starting with the quarterback and Lawrence, but like ETN does not feel like the same player. As a guy that's had him the last 2 years, it just feels like he's dropping off. If it wasn't for the fact that he catches the ball a lot out of that backfield, he's fallen out of like RB1 real quick. And I don't know what it is. I think it's just the offense altogether. Maybe they need a Flacco type backup to come in and just revitalize that team. But unfortunately, they're stuck with Trevor Lawrence in that terrible contract.
Joe Flacco does feel ageless, but like if you look, like I actually think when you watch Bigsby in the game with them, it feels like, and this is from spending very little time watching or studying anything Jaguars, but the little bit that I've seen, it feels like they move better when Bigsby's in the game. Like the offense seems like it's more productive, and that's from, a very, very like a 50,000 foot view on the Jaguars team. Um, I also like Bigsby. I liked him last year. I like the name Tank. It's a perfect name for a running back. Oh, he's got all the intangibles that I look for in my players. But
I love that we have two players in the league named Tank. It's so awesome.
they're both good.
Yeah. That's all I got for this game, though. This is not a game I'm excited to watch, but I'd pick the Colts if I had to pick a team.
All right, let's move on from one garbage game to another. We've got Browns versus Commanders. So the Browns, I wouldn't touch anybody on that team. If they're lucky, maybe that freak of nature, Nick Chubb, shows back up this season. I think he's what they started the practice window on him. He might do something, but the rest of the team's garbage. So I don't think, even if he could come back, it's going to amount to much. And then on the Commander side, Jaden Daniels, I like the guy. Right now, he's in that Lamar Jackson mold. I mean, he can run. The passing game kind of comes out in spurts. I think overall, once he gets more time underneath him, he's just going to become an even better passer. And as an Eagles fan, it's scary because I think he's going to be legitimately good. We'll see if they build the team around him right. As far as who to play on in this game, I think Terry McLaurin's kind of a safe bet. They've kind of built that rapport. Terry McLaurin's a guy that catches all passes at all levels. He's a volume type guy more than just a deep threat guy. He doesn't always get in the end zone, but if you have him in a PPR league, he can stack up some catches. And I think they're starting to get a rapport together. I think that'll help. But as far as the Browns, I don't know of anybody you could even remotely trust on that team fantasy wise. But I got the Commanders winning this game pretty easily this week too. What do you guys think?
I'm going to go just I think that you miss out on the sneaky play on the Browns that everybody misses every week. James Ford.
Jerome
I'm
Ford?
sorry, Jerome Ford, not James Ford. Jerome Ford. He every week he fires up 15 points somehow. It's usually garbage. It's usually at the end of the game. But if you're stuck in fantasy wise, like he's actually been, I think, RB20 on the year. John, you might have the
Really?
stats in front of you, but like he's not like he's really not as bad as in my head I thought he was. Donta Foreman had that one blip week where they just decided, like, hey, you know what? Beat it. Get out there and see what you can do. When Chubb comes back, I feel like he's got a little Adrian Peterson-esque season in him next year. I mean, it's hard to come back from reconstruction surgery. What is it, third time now? I really like. I think the Browns actually do slow the Commanders a little bit. I think the Commanders win ultimately, but I think it's going to be a lower scoring 20-17 style game.
That I can
Yeah,
understand.
I agree. I think it's going to be more of a slugfest than what the Commanders have been playing. This is definitely a better defense than what they faced. I mean, we're going to see Daniels under a little pressure this week. We'll see if Myles Garrett gets at him. I know he's a little banged up himself, but we'll see. We'll see what happens there. I mean, the Cardinals last week had zero pressure on the guy. He threw all over them, made them look terrible. So we'll see. But I do like Daniels. I think he's going to be an excellent quarterback in the NFL. I think he was the best pick in this draft, to be honest. The Bears shit the bed again.
It's hard to do it as many times in a row as they've done it.
Yeah, it's impressive.
The streak continues.
We'll see. I mean, we'll see how it ends up. I mean, this hopefully doesn't go on like an RG3 route where he ends up, having 2 good years and then his career's over. But I see him going more down like a Lamar Jackson path, but he's a better passer than Lamar.
Definitely.
So,
Cool.
Yeah.
So-
As for this game, I stay away from pretty much anybody on the Brown side for fantasy, except for Ford, possibly, if you need to play him.
James or Jerome?
James Ford.
All right, that brings us to another spectacular game on this slate. We got Seattle and the Giants with Malik Neighbors. So they're actually fantasy-wise, this is not a bad game. Like this is like a sneaky fantasy game. If you were playing like daily fantasy or things like that, Neighbors is, I think, next year. If you redrafted and reshuffled right now, Neighbors goes top 10. He has he has an insane amount of upside talent. Daniel Jones is just efficient enough to get him the ball 20 times a game, and he catches everything. So there's really not much else. Like that route tree is pretty narrow. It's just Neighbors and then throw Wandale a token pass or two. Um, Seattle is a very annoying fantasy team to root for. If you have any part of their offense, you're like, well, why are they not throwing? Because I feel like they have three guys in DK, JSN, and Lockett who always look like they're open. And you got Geno Smith chucking on the ball for like the third year in a row. And you're like, this can't really work. But sometimes Geno can sling it. Sometimes they get open, but you never know which one's going to pop off at any time. Their running backs, Walker came back and he dropped, 33 points last week? It like I feel like the Seahawks always are going to have a guy go off. It's just roulette on which one it's going to be. It's only going to be one and like 1.5. You're not going to have like a huge game out of both people. The Giants are putrid minus Neighbors, so this game, minus that, I'm picking the Seahawks to win. And I don't know if it's going to be a fun game. We'll see what happens, but I'd really like watching Neighbors play. I hate that he's on the Giants.
Neighbors is in the protocol, just starting out. I don't know who he plays this week.
Really?
It's going to be close. I think it's going to be a game time decision with him. Singletary's banged up, so that's not good for the Giants either.
Yeah, that's what I was going to go with.
Yeah, like I think Seattle destroys them in this game. Seattle like to grind the game out. They play solid defense and they like to run the ball. They throw the ball occasionally to one of those three guys, and yes, one of them will go off every game. You just have no idea which one. It's normally going to be Metcalf if you had to pick one. Like he's the guy I would go with, but like I've hated Tyler Lockett since the day he came in the league. He's like a guy he'll be like fifth in the league in receiving in fantasy points, but it was because he had 3 big games the whole fucking season. Like he is just like the epitome of like boomer bust, like completely. But I mean, I like Walker. I think he's solid. He's a guy I was actually targeting in drafts. I didn't get him in any drafts, but he's a guy I was looking at. I think he's very solid. I think he's a good play. And Geno's, if you need a quarterback on this bye week, he's a guy I picked up. There's worse options out there. I mean, he's going to get you between 16 and 20 points. That should be good enough to help you out in a pinch.
It's crazy that Geno Smith's still in the league.
Yeah.
Hey, he's one of those, Jet survivors. I think the Seahawks are going to win this game fairly easily. I guarantee. Well, yeah, there's definitely going to be less fantasy points this week. I mean, yes, Kenneth Walker went off last week, but that was just because they had to keep trying. It was so much garbage time points for them. Every time they got close, the Lions just kept scoring on them. There was no defense in that game last week. I think they'll get up early and often on the Giants. The Giants, I don't think they just don't have enough firepower to stop them. They'll get up early and then they'll probably coast the rest of the way. So I see the points for all the Seahawks going down this weekend. I mean, Kenneth Walker, I don't think is going to put up as much. But yeah, I agree with John. Any of the receivers I would go with, JSN or Lockett wouldn't be the one. It would be DK every week. I mean, he's still averaging 90 yards a week. So is he as dominant as he could be? No, but he's definitely the most reliable one there.
All right. On to the Cardinals and 49ers. This one might be one of the better games of the week, surprisingly. At least fun to watch. Divisional battle, the 1-3 Cardinals, 2-2 Niners in San Fran. If you look at the numbers, this is crazy. Brock Purdy is second in the league in passing with 1,130 yards. Like, that's insane to me. Like, you asked me in 1,000 years if I thought he'd be the second leading passer in the NFL, I'd be like, no, not a chance. But he's slinging it around to a bunch of different guys. They don't have a real alpha on that team right now. Ayuk's been a bust. Kittle's coming back off injury. He's boom or bust with the way he plays, and he's more of like he's just a really good tight end. He's a great blocker. He does everything. Samuel's he's a hot play ready to happen. Like he can burn you in a second. But now that he's back, he's going to cause trouble. And Jennings is playing out of his mind. I mean, like you got to give the guy credit. He's really stepped up in the absence of these other guys. They've been really banged up, and he's done well. I don't think his production is going to stay at that level with these other guys back, but I do a football player. and Mason's been fantastic. Um, McCaffrey's got double Achilles tendonitis now that in both legs. I don't know if we're seeing McCaffrey this year. I have
Nope.
a feeling he's not coming back. He's got to get some kind of treatment done and see if they can
Yeah,
clean that up a little bit. But I mean,
it's
tendonitis, it's going to be.
it's usually never a good sign when a player has to go to another country for medical treatment. Didn't Peyton Manning do that in his last year with the Colts? They're like, oh, he's gonna go over there, get a treatment, and come back, and then he was never a Colt again. He went to the Broncos. So
Chase
it's
Utley did
it's
it towards the end of his career too. They were like, "Oh, they're gonna."
yeah.
It's like there's like bone on bone. That's usually what you hear. It's like bone on bone in Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean that's never a good sign, but they're still just a still just a good team. You know,
They
fantasy
run a great
wise,
scheme.
yeah, it works
Mason's been
for him.
playing
And
well.
and Brock Purdy, you're right. Brock Purdy steps up shockingly, but he's getting it done. I mean, I gave him a lot of credit that going into this year, like at the playoff run last year, it wasn't just McCaffrey, it wasn't just the star guys. Like Brock Purdy was getting the job done
Mhm.
in a way that I think most people didn't think he could do. So he's a legitimate quarterback. He's surprising everybody because he was Mr. Irrelevant or damn near close to if he wasn't. Um, and then you're right. You got the Cardinals on the other side where you can't trust them for anything. I mean, Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. had that one crazy game, but it kind of just seemed like they were playing playground football and just chucking the ball up everywhere, and then nothing for the remaining weeks after that. They can't build anything consistent. They don't seem like a legitimate threat. If they could ever get on the same page and get it all together, they could be scary. But they're kind of boom or bust as a duo right now. So I agree with you. I think it's the Niners all day.
Niners
I
win.
don't. I don't. Yeah, Tom.
I was gonna say Niners win. It's definitely been more bust and boom for Marvin and Kyler, which I think Kyler's the problem. It feels like he's not able to distribute the ball. It always like I know I always looks like whenever you watch him, he can't see over the line. So like the fact that he gets the ball out at all is amazing, but he's not really flashing. Like a couple of years ago, he flashed like he was going to be Lamar Jackson, but that can throw the ball much better, and it really hasn't happened. He doesn't run like he used to, and he's throwing more Daniel Jones than Josh Allen at this point. So um, they're a tough team to watch. They're not fun. Marvin looks fun when he gets the ball. He needs to get more targets in that offense. We're going to say
Yeah,
that,
I
John. I'm
mean,
sorry.
McBride's out this week, so that limits the tree even more. He's got a concussion. Like, I think this game's gonna be all 49ers. But if you got Cardinals, you're starting Murray, you're starting Harrison, you're starting Connor. I mean, every week those guys are starting for you. You really can't take them out of lineup unless you have like the world's best team. Like, it's just not gonna happen. So just fire up your normal guys, pray that they get a touchdown, and that's pretty much the way to go in that one.
All right, what do you got next, Tom?
So I got Pittsburgh and Dallas. This one's actually another okay one to look for. A little Super Bowl 36 rematch. It's coming up on what, like 30 years since this happened for Dallas. So I celebrate this every year, every time they play. I remember, what was it, Ken O'Donnell? Or well, who was it? Neil O'Donnell?
Neil
Neil
O'Donnell.
O'Donnell? I'm awful with names today. Neil O'Donnell was their quarterback for this does happen. So Justin Fields in this one, I like. I think Justin Fields had a raw deal in Chicago, and it's kind of proving the same because Caleb Williams looks very similar to Justin Fields did last year, just with more weapons and higher expectations. Justin Fields has I don't know what they're doing in Pittsburgh, but they keep talking about Russell playing, and I don't know why or when you're like, you know what? No, that's not going to happen. Like, keep Fields. Fields is younger. He's obviously like kind of being groomed to be the apparent, the one to go there. I saw something. If they do get Adams in there, it would be a skinny route tree because they don't throw the ball a ton. But Adams and Pickens brings you back to when the Steelers had crazy wideouts. So that would be something I would be excited to see. I really like I do like Fields on that side. On the other side, Cooks is out this week, I believe. Right? Didn't they just announce that? the Cooks is gone. So the CD, obviously CD and Dak. Dallas feels like they're missing a running back, and it's not feels, it is like they're missing that running game threat, which is it's hurting them. Like they have basically the same offense they've had for a couple years, where they've been top 5, top 10, and they were always a threat. It feels stale. It feels like it's kind of the luster's off, and Dak's got to make it happen. And I think Dak is a top 10 quarterback, but you got to give him weapons to win with him. They need more weapons.
Their offensive line's not as it once was, and I
No,
think a part of that run game. Obviously, backs that they had over. I mean, Zeke's at the tail end of his career. Dowdle is okay. I mean, he's a number 2, number 3 on any other team in the NFL, you know, and they throw Deuce Vaughn in there occasionally, but he's a tiny guy. He's no Sproles, you know. But they are what they are. I mean, like the Cowboys they're gonna be in games because they can sling it. CD can burn you on any play. I mean, like, but their defense isn't what it was. I mean, like they are not the same team this year. Their secondary is not good. They're not getting the pass rush. They're banged up now with Parsons and Lawrence. Like, I don't see things looking too good for Dallas. And Pittsburgh's been playing well. They've been sticking in games. They play everybody tough. You know, the
the
defense
defense
is very
is
good.
strong
Yeah.
defense.
So, I mean,
Um,
from a fantasy perspective, I don't want any part of this game. Really, I don't like either running back on the Pittsburgh side or the Dallas side. You know, CD's really the only guy that I would be comfortable firing up, just because he does what he does.
All right, you've both failed to mention the one sleeper in this game, fantasy wise, and this is only if your league still has them. Some leagues do, some leagues don't. Brandon Aubrey. That's their third best offensive weapon. They got Dak, they got CeeDee Lamb, and their kicker. That
if you're
guy
in a
is
league
great. He
that has
literally
6 points for long field goals, he actually has been kicking bombs.
even if not, they utilize him so often. They have so much confidence in him. And it's weird to me the amount of good kickers in the league. Like there are so many kickers that can be trusted to make these long kicks. This guy came out of nowhere last year, and I think he's missed one kick over 50 yards. He missed his first one a couple weeks ago, and I think it was from 50 yards. But you know, but like they legitimately do use that guy as a weapon. It's Dak, CD, and their kicker because they don't have a running back and they don't have other receivers. Um, but who are you guys picking in this game? That's my biggest question. I think Pittsburgh, because they have the ability to play great defense and grind it out with a combination of their two running backs and/or Justin Fields running the ball. I think they could manage the clock. I think they could make it an ugly game and legitimately win this game. What do you guys think?
I mean, limit the possessions. I got the Steelers winning too.
Okay, me too.
All right.
And when the red Cowboys lose and the blue Cowboys lose, it's a good week, especially when the Eagles are off. So,
all right. Well, now we're going to go to a real exciting game: the Panthers and Bears. We're going to go through this one quick. Andy Dalton's been lighting the world on fire since he came in, right? Like they look like a different team with him at quarterback, offensively at least. The defense is still what it is. But he's come in 2 games, 539 yards, 5 TDs, and 1 pick. I mean, you can't ask for much more from a backup quarterback than that. He's made Deontay Johnson look phenomenal. The 2 games they played together, 15 catches, 205 yards, 2 TDs. They look at Xavier Leggett, 8 catches, 108 yards, and a TD in the 2 games. These 2 guys are now relevant fantasy players with a half decent quarterback playing. Like, how bad was Bryce Young? Like, I think the kid he might need some time to learn. I don't think he's that awful as he looked. I don't know that he's a starting NFL quarterback, but like he should be at least a serviceable backup at some point in his career. He definitely wasn't a number 1 pick, but you know, it is what it is at this point. They're going to keep moving forward with Dalton, I think, and stick with him as long as they're playing better, and see what happens, you know, later in the season. But at running back, they got Hubbard. He's playing phenomenal too. They just activated Jonathan Brooks off of the injured reserve though. So we'll see how that plays out. I don't think Brooks is playing this week at all, but like we'll see how that if that turns into a timeshare as the season goes on. But Hubbard's playing really well. I don't know how much he really loses off the bat. And then on the other side, the Bears. Williams had his best game last week. It was against the crappy Rams defense. As a Rams fan, it's very painful, but it's bad. Their defense is bad. They give up yards to everybody. And Swift had a great game last week too. So I don't take anything away from him. He's going to be the back there. They paid him the money. He's the guy that's going to run the ball. I know Ray was talking about Roshan Johnson kind of sneaking in there and taking some carries, but Swift's the guy. As far as that receiving core goes, though, I don't trust any of them on any given week. I think, Odunze is probably the guy I'd want if I had to have one of them. But they're all about the same. They all have like just under 200 yards receiving. Cole Kmet's been playing better. He's the safety valve for Williams. He's the guy that really he's the one he looks for. So if you need a tight end, fire him up. But other than that, I don't really want anything to do with the Bears offense.
I don't think Caleb Williams is a full on Bryce Young yet. I think they still deserve to give him some time, but he's gonna need some work. He's definitely a stash. He's not somebody I would go ahead and you'd play anytime soon. Who knows? They might eventually turn it around, but yeah, it's an ugly looking team. Everything about you said about John, you said about the Panthers is spot on. Like once they got a legitimate quarterback, they have a legitimate offense. It's just a matter of Bryce Young couldn't run it. Maybe he'll figure it out. Probably it's looking like probably not with the Panthers, especially if that coach wants to make it past this year. I think he's coaching for his job, especially with that owner the way he is. He's not going to have a long leash. I think him playing Andy Dalton the rest of the year is a smart move. And I think the Panthers could potentially pull this game out as well. What you got, Tom?
I mean, I hate this game. Chuba Hubbard is like kind of came out of nowhere. He's actually very young. He's only 25 years old, and like he feels like he's been around for like a longer time than 25 years old. But he's outlasted Miles Sanders. Everybody else is there. I do like Xavier Leggett. I think Xavier Leggett has a lot of Debo to him. Just a younger, you got to wait for time, but he is now fantasy relevant, like John was saying. This game is, I think this is going to be one that I skip. I'm not betting this again. I'm not excited to watch it. As exciting as the Red Rifle is, I think I'm going to pass on most fantasy players that have to do with Carolina.
All right, then. Let's go ahead and move ahead to Bills and Texans. I think this matchup's perfectly timed for the Bills to have a bounce back game, and it's only because they were just so brutally exposed by the Baltimore Ravens. And what do they get coming out of it? A Houston Texans team in which they might not have their top two running backs. I mean, Joe Mixon might not play. What's the backup? Who's the backup? I can't think of his name right now.
Dameon Pierce.
Yeah,
Pierce.
Dameon Pierce is still dealing with like a hamstring injury. He's probably not going to play. Sleeper pick, Cam Akers might actually father a lot of the carries. I don't know how well he's going to do, but we know the Bills can't stop the run. So he might be, if you're desperate, he might be a play. So it'll be interesting to see what the Josh Allen bounce back and him versus CJ Stroud. Well, it'll be interesting to see how that looks. And plus, it's going to be a big, payback game for Stephon Diggs, especially after the Bills looked so good up until last week without him. So interested to see what you guys have to say about it.
I mean, Nico
I
Collins.
don't like the Akers call at all. He's done nothing. He's played the last 2 weeks. He's done nothing.
In his career or just in general?
just the last 2 weeks. He had a little run with the Rams. He was okay then. I don't like that at all though. I say like you have a Texans wide receiver, fire him up this week. Like they're going to be down in this game. I think Josh Allen. He's otherworldly. He really is fun to watch. He slings the ball around. He throws to everybody. He doesn't have an alpha receiver on that team. He just moves it around, moves it down the field. Cook's playing well. I think you have him. You fire him up. You fire up Allen. I don't know which Bills receiver you pick if you got to pick one. To be honest,
I think this week
probably
it's
Shakir.
Shakir came up on the injury report. He's questionable right
Yeah.
now, so Keon Coleman might be the guy. Going into the year, I thought Curtis Samuel had a chance to be a sleeper good player, but they don't utilize him, or he just doesn't get it open, or he's not on Josh Allen's radar. So Keon Coleman might be the play for them this week, but if nothing else, they're going to be one of the more entertaining games to watch this week.
Yeah, this game is absolutely well. I think my favorite, the game I'm looking forward to the most. I love watching Josh Allen play the game. It feels like he's like a combination of everything fun about football. When he's down, he's never down for long. He's always making things happen, and he doesn't need a receiver. He doesn't need a running back. He doesn't even need a line. He's just going to make stuff happen, which is insanely fun. The Texans, like Nico Collins, is outstanding as a wideout. Insane. And like they have so much like depth to that route tree that they could throw to him, Tank, or Stephon Diggs at any play. They don't need to run the ball. CJ's going to sling it. There's going to be like hopefully a 42-39 style game that they don't cut away from on red zone. Buffalo, I think, wins. Buffalo, I think you nailed it, Mish. I think it's a perfect bounce back game. It's fun. You're fighting the team. Like you're going against the team. You'll probably see them again at some point because I think Houston does make the playoffs, and this feels like the classic like 4-5 playoff matchup or 3-6 type playoff matchup. So I'm looking forward to it.
All right, what game you got next, Tom?
So are we almost done? We got anybody else got any games left, or we're back to Monday night?
I got one
believe we're
game
on
left.
Oh, okay.
Yep, I got the Rams Packers, which I think might be the highest scoring game of the week. To be honest, the Packers put up some massive numbers last week in a losing effort. Jordan Love comes back off injury, throws for 389 yards and 4 TDs against the Vikings' vaunted defense. Stafford's still putting up numbers. He's got 978 passing yards, but only 2 TDs to show for it this year. That's the difference. They're just not getting in the end zone. So I think you're going to see the ball thrown around a lot in this game. Obviously, Kyron Williams he's a beast. He's looking like one of the best running backs in the league right now. Josh Jacobs, very solid as well. He's not as involved in the passing game, but he's still very solid. If you're going to go for wideouts, Jalen Reed is looking like an up-and-coming superstar right now. Him and Jordan Love have a real connection. Those guys are phenomenal together. And my sleeper pick of the week, Dontavian Wicks. He is the guy this week I think that could go off. If you need to pick a daily wideout, I think he's the guy to stick on your team. He's going to have a huge week. Tutu Atwell's played well. He's a big play guy, though. He's not going to get you the volume. If you need a Ram, I still go with Whittington. Same thing I said last week. Last week he had 6 catches for 62 yards. He led the Rams in receptions. I think if you're looking for volume, he's the guy there.
I mean, fantasy-wise, I agree with you. I got a question for you, football-wise. Are the Packers good? Yes. Here's I looked at this, so the score breakdown. It was 28-7 going into halftime last week. They had a furious comeback. So every time I've watched the Packers, they have so much talent. I don't know if it's like Jordan Love feels like he scores in bunches. It always feels like he's like he'll have one manic quarter. So they scored 22 points in the fourth quarter last week to bring that game back, and it became a very fun game to watch. I don't know if we go off the first game of the year, but the Eagles did beat them down in Brazil on the world's worst field since Super Bowl 57. So I really don't know. Like, are they good?
I think
They're solid.
really they're solid, but really what it is, and I don't think anybody's really noticed it or thought about it. Jordan Love is literally just a more athletic Brett Favre. Like if you watched the end of that game, he was just scrambling around, slinging it, and the only difference is he could break away from people and run away from people to sling it. The guy just throws it up with disregard to everything. And a lot of times it works, but like he's just a more athletic Favre. He's gonna truck that ball. And granted, they were down a lot, and that probably played a lot into it. But I mean, he does have 4 picks on the year already, and some of them are ugly. But like, you run that risk with him. It's just like the upside is so good, it's worth taking the risk on that downside because he's not just forcing the ball plays; he's chucking it, and either they're getting it or there were some crazy bounces and stuff early on in that game. But he's just a freakishly athletic Favre, and if he keeps playing the way he was, he's kind of following in that Josh Allen mold of he's a fun quarterback to watch because I was watching that game directly last week thinking great, this is terrible because I started Jordan Love over Baker Mayfield. Baker destroyed the Eagles and Jordan Love was down 28-7. I was like, this is going to be terrible. And then that comeback, that was just an amazing game to watch. It was fun to watch, you know? So the guy will sling it. He'll put up points. I think they can be a good team. I question their defense a little bit, but they are a legitimately good team. I mean, the way the playoff run they made last year, the way they destroyed the Cowboys, and I'm pretty sure they had the Niners beat in that game as well, up until a point. They were winning that game. I think if they could ever get it all on the same page, you know, once Jordan Love gets a few more weeks, gets a little bit more healthy, I think they're going to make a solid run. I think they're going to be a scary team come the end of the year. In this game, yeah, I think they're going to win this one.
That
And I
NFC
agree,
North.
John Wicks is the guy that Wicks is the great sleeper play because Jaden Reed has already established himself as scary. Wicks is the guy. It's not Romeo Dobbs like it was last year in a couple games. Wicks is definitely overtaken him as this number 2.
That NFC North is a ton of fun to watch this year.
Yeah.
You know, even to get the Lions up there, so that's a great one. So we're gonna finish the week out. This one is a fun fantasy one to talk about. We got what is it? Kansas City and New Orleans. Fun times. Kansas City backfield is a roulette wheel that never stops giving. Andy Reid's running backs always feel like they produce. So you go back to when he was with the Eagles, he's always got a running back that produces, and it feels like they could just insert anybody into that offense. So they had Carson Steele, who that experiment died pretty quickly, and they got my favorite running back of the last 10 years is Kareem Hunt. He's back. He's back kicking on the team.
He looked
Um,
good.
he
He
looked
looked good
great. He
last
actually
week.
looked spry. He looked good, and I'm sure this year that he's coming back some way to haunt me again. But I really like. I think that he does add a dimension to that offense that you know he could be a 3 down back. Um, I think it's his to lose at this point for that backfield. They're very very thin on wideouts now. I think it's got to go back to be like a more plotting Travis Kelsey play where he's going to get a ton of the looks and everything's going to kind of go off of Travis Kelsey, which isn't necessarily bad. It just makes them much less explosive. Xavier Woods has had a couple flashes, but not enough targets to really do something with him. Like when he does get a target, he maximizes the targets he gets, but he's getting 3 to 5 a game, and it's not enough. So I think they're going to have to maximize the looks to Worthy, and everything's going to have to run through Worthy, Kelsey, and Hunt as they go through it. The other side, New Orleans is kind of a Jekyll and Hyde team. Like they are they good? Are they bad? We don't know. They lost to the Eagles. They lost last week. Like Derek Carr looked like a world beater. If they get Devontae Adams again, they're in the Adams sweepstakes, so that could change and make Carr a real player. But you got Kamara, who you're absolutely firing up. You got Kamara, he's an absolute start. I don't love anybody else on the Saints. I think for this game, fantasy wise, I think I would fire up Worthy because I do think he's going to get more looks. Kelsey bounce back. Kelsey's probably going to get 10 to 12 looks a game. He'll probably get 8 to 10 catches, probably a touchdown. Kareem Hunt's going to sneak and steal a touchdown, probably 80 yards, and we'll see what happens. So it's really all Chiefs stuff for me on fantasy side, and I do think the Chiefs win again.
I think this is more of a good football game than a good fantasy football game. I don't like any of the Chiefs players fantasy wise, to be honest. I mean, if you have Kelsey, obviously you're playing Kelsey. I mean, he's still one of the best tight ends in the league. He's having a little bit of a slow start. He'll come around. He'll be fine. But like the rest of them, like you don't know which guy to ever start a wide receiver. The running backs,
The one that's left.
they're okay. Like, yeah, I mean, like, but that last year was the same thing with Sky Moore. Everybody thought
Yeah.
him and Tony. Like, you don't know
Huh?
which guy to start because Mahomes is so good at moving the ball around. It doesn't matter who he's throwing to. He doesn't need an alpha. He's kind of like Josh Allen that way. Like, they don't need an alpha receiver. They can just give it to anybody and they move down the field. And the Saints, like, it's Kamara or bust. You said it. I mean, it's the guy's on pace for 320 carries, which I think is an insane number for him. He's not built to have that many carries. They need to find a second back to help him out. Miller's supposed to be coming back off IR at some point, so I think that will definitely help spell him a little bit, because Jamal Williams he looks kind of cooked at this point.
Kamara's
but other than
touches.
that,
Kamara's touches right now, 97 touches through week 4.
it's crazy.
It
It's
was,
crazy.
I
insane.
mean, it was nice for some people to have him. I mean, he was having a bounce back because I would say the last, 2 years, almost 3, he's kind of not been that fantasy relevant as he was when his first couple years in the league, when he was taking the league by storm. I mean, they've been handed the ball off to him, in my opinion, way too much. Jamal Williams, if nothing else, just to give him a break. But it's not there. And Chris Olave is just hit or miss. I mean, unless he's playing against the Eagles, apparently he's just highly irrelevant. And he's a skillful guy. It's just him and Derek Carr just feel like they've never gotten on the same page. So if they get Devontae Adams, that probably spells bad things for Chris Olave. And on the Chiefs side, they had their option. Unfortunately, Rashee Rice got hurt, but Rashee Rice was getting the catches he was getting because they were shading everything to Kelsey. Kelsey's been getting so much defense looked at him. I think this is probably going to be a slightly ugly game. Are the Chiefs going to win? Probably. There's probably going to be a random yellow flag thrown at the end of the game that people will complain about. I would just for 1 week, could the Chiefs win a game without a flag in the fourth quarter? Or a questionable non-call. It just is anybody else
Are the
tired of that,
Chiefs-
or is that just me?
Are they the new Patriots? Like,
Oh,
does everybody
definitely.
hate them and just not want to see them win anymore? Like,
And I'm not saying every flag that's thrown at the end of a Chiefs game is incorrect, but every game has that scenario. Like they complained about it when the Bengals game. Was it a legitimate call? Yeah, but then the very next week against the Falcons on Monday night,
I would love a
no
stat.
call.
I would love to see the stats on yellow flags in Chiefs' favor that either goes against the other team or for them to give first downs or touchdowns in the fourth quarter in the Mahomes era. Like, I wonder what the stat, if it's skewed or if it's just the feeling you get when you watch the games.
And yes,
sounds like
we are
salty Eagles fans.
we
talking.
are salty. We are salty, but it's happening in regular season games repeatedly. Was
I'm
that a
very
penalty
salty.
at the end of that? Was that a penalty at the end of the Super Bowl? Yes. Do you throw that flag in the Super Bowl when you never throw a flag on that type play at the end of the game? No. Let the
what
game
really got
play
me,
out.
though?
It would have been such a better game, and they didn't call that
I agree.
call all game.
It was
That's my
still
only
a
argument.
penalty. It was still
Oh, definitely.
an
He was never
acceptable
gonna.
flag call.
He was never going to catch it. He was never going to catch it. And that
thing-
might be the Chiefs. That might be the Chiefs' option going forward until they, bring somebody else in. Maybe Juju gets some catches. Not enough to be fantasy relevant, but maybe he gets some catches here coming up.
Tired of
Let's see
Juju.
that.
I'll tell you what went too
What
far.
happened to Sky Moore?
Somebody sent me a
That guy's-
card. Somebody sent me a
Why?
card with James Bradbury on it, and it was a Valentine's Day card. Right after that happened, and they were like, "I'll hold you when it matters most." It was the worst card that anybody could ever give me. It sucked. Still salty.
Definitely
He
salty.
sucks. He's a
So-
terrible cornerback. He gave up more big plays than anybody last year.
Big play slay. Well, either way, that's going to wrap it up for this week. Hopefully, it's a better week for all of us. We should start keeping track of who scored the best on your picks. Like, gotta have the fantasy picks. Maybe we'll do some editing on some of these videos if people actually watch them. And if we get to 5 likes that aren't us or our family members, we'll start using graphics.
Wait a minute, we
If
got
you're-
likes? I thought we just got views.
We got views. I mean, step 2 is getting likes, but
Yeah.
if somebody makes it to
Our
minute,
family didn't even like it.
no, if somebody makes it to minute 1, like 1 hour and 4 minutes in, and they're like, "Oh, I throw you a thumbs up," I'm gonna let's see some graphics. Then we'll put you on. So you got to do the thing, Mister. You got to do the intentional grounding sign before we leave. I'm gonna cut it off.
Is that what it is? All right, ready? This way? This way? I
No,
don't
no,
know.
it's
I'm
not.
no
I'm
rep.
just messing with you. So we'll come up with a name next week. All right,
All right,
all
later.
right, fellas. Have a great
All right,
week.
fellas. Take care.